Monster Mash, basically. I think that no one's seen those data sheets in years as well, so people kind of forgot what they did.
Hi, and welcome back to Mega Miniatures. As you may be aware, last weekend was the Bristol GT in the UK for Warhammer 40k, and it was an amazing tournament to watch. I was following along with the Best Coast Pairings app that you can download on your phone. I'll share a link in the description to see how all the players were performing, seeing what people were taking to the tournament and how everything was stacking up. And it was the first tournament in a long while that we've seen a real variety of armies and choices in those armies. Space Marines, including Space Wolves and Deathwing, were doing really well most of the weekend. In the end, the winners ended up being Eldar, but it wasn't the Harlequin sweep that we've seen recently this year, so that was a real change. One army that caught my attention, though, was a Monster Mash army created by Liam, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to reach out to him and invite him to talk about his army and how he created it and how he did so well. Overall, he came 5th, so he sadly missed out on the top 4 to compete for those last points, but that involved 3 Eldar armies and a Tau army, so not overly unexpected, but his list was so different and so interesting that I really wanted to speak to him and see why he came up with what he did. If you check out the Mega Miniatures website down below, I've put an entire list there of what he took to the tournament. If you like this kind of thing, I hope to be able to get some more interviews with tournament players. I'm very interested to see their list creations as well as how they got into tournaments themselves. I followed your exploits all weekend. I thought it was fascinating what you managed to achieve and what army you brought with you. I suppose first big question, looking at your previous armies you've run, including Drukhari and Thousand Suns, what kind of inspired you to take this Monster Mash list that I've just never seen before?
So it's basically a list that I've sort of played a few versions of it before, where it was the lots of keepers and then Morty in there, and then sort of with Armor of Contempt and stuff in there. I thought the Disco Lords would be fun to make a comeback with. Yeah. But honestly, it's just because it's really fun. Like, I mean,
that's brilliant.
That's basically it. I mean, I always just play very oppressive, very sort of in-your-face armies that just run at the enemy and see if they can answer that problem. And this list is sort of the epitome of that concept of just, can you deal with it? Probably not most of the time.
I was going to say, was that one of the key factors in the sense that you just had so many big threats? It wasn't like, right, I'm going to take out Morty and then deal with everything else. It was, as you said, so many varieties of things that you just couldn't handle.
Yeah, so I mean, it is essentially the definition of a stupid skew list. Like, it's it is just really just big monsters. But I personally think that it sort of works better than the Chaos Demons only version, where you just have all the keepers and things like that. Because basically, what makes it tick is Morty turning off rerolls.
So that's the choice for Morty there.
Yeah. That's basically the whole reason. Morty, I would pay another 150 points for, just to have that ability in the army, honestly. Because it allows the whole army to function. Like, it's so oppressively difficult to deal with it once it gets in your face, because all the rerolls get turned off. You boost it up to a 12-inch aura, or, well, it's not an aura, but the contagion thing.
Yeah.
And it just becomes, like, it's a nightmare for people to grind through. It's sort of like, I played my worst matchup in the final round of the event, which was like 20 crisis suits, and they did basically, it killed all my monsters. They all died, but it's so annoyingly difficult to do it without rerolls that it lasted long enough that I managed to out primary them, basically.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's sort of how it works. It's like it's one of those difficult armies where you say, like, oh, how does it work? It's like, it's kind of idiot proof. You just run at people and.
Was there never a sense of having to keep it back? Because often in a normal kind of Chaos army, you were saying keepers, you'd hide away until maybe they can come out and hit big.
Yeah, so usually it comes in 2 waves, and it pretty much plays the same in every game, which is Morty and Be'lakor jump into the middle of the board. So do Psychic Ritual or something like that. Be'lakor usually tries to stay behind Obscuring. Morty just jumps into the middle of the table with an advance. And then the two flanks, both Keepers and the Disco Lords, run down those. Right. If you roll up Realm Racer on your Exalted Powers, you can get first turn charges. And most games I was getting first turn charges.
Awesome.
So it was just, you just can't get away from them because if you want any chance of getting on an objective, you have to deploy somewhere close to the front line, and like the Keepers can
big
run
threat wherever you're going.
Yeah, exactly. And if you roll up Realm Racer, your sort of average distance is like 16, 17, 18. You're moving a minimum of 20 inches, which is if you roll ones on your advance and a double one on your charge, your minimum move is 20.
That's crazy.
So if you roll anything average, basically, you're going like 30-odd inches with them, basically.
Wow.
Sort of on average. So it's just almost impossible to hide from that. And I feel in the current meta, not a lot of people are screening very much.
Yeah, there's been talks of that with like Zangors in Thousand Suns, people bringing them for potential screening, but I haven't actually seen it being done. There's talk happening, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, actually, to be fair, to my final opponent with all the Tau, he screened me very well. Like, he had, like, little units of 4, what are they called, like, Kroot Hounds, I think they are, and then little Kroot and stuff, and I did have to sort of kill my way through those to reach any of his stuff, which was the best way to play it, really, from his perspective. He played it very well, and really kept me back. The problem was he had to box himself into his deployment zone to do it, Yeah, never quite managed to push out. And with all the fly and everything like it's very hard to hide from, basically. And
I admit one of the reasons I found your army in the first place while going through the app was I was following along with Alex's list, who you did end up playing. One of my main armies is Thousand Suns, so I was fascinated to see how he would handle 30 scarabs. Like, that was really interesting for me. And then when I saw him coming against you, and it's like, this is not the score I was expecting at all when it came up. And I know in previous games, I mean, looking at the list here, you've done very well at tournaments in the past. How did you find coming against his Thousand Suns, because you've had experience using them before? Did that add to it, or have you ever tried 30 scarabs yourself?
So I've tried 20 sort of where I capped out at them and then sort of running other bits and bobs with it. I think it's sort of it's a bit of a tough one there because all my damage is flat 3. I don't really care so much about, like, I think 3, 4, 5, 6 denies in the army. So like I have a decent number of psychic denies. Everything I do kills a scarab in combat, basically. Yeah. And they don't really have a way of, they can't stop my rerolls, they can't stop my sort of anything I'm denying. And in the case of this one, I got like an insane turn 1 charge with a Keeper that moved like I think it moved nearly 40 inches, and that's just because I like sort of went round the back and with piling, consolidate, everything like that, and just ended up crazily in his deployment zone. And then that by itself killed 8 Scarabacol, and then he called it his turn 2 psychic phase, because he shook on that one because basically he failed to teleport a unit of Scarabs out of combat with Morty and Be'lakor.
So he called the game early then?
Yeah, so he shook my hand. Well, he actually shook my hand end of turn 1, and then was like, oh, actually, no, I will play it on. And then he ended up in his psychic phase turn 2, because I was basically going to pick up all the Scarabs on turn 3, and then he'd taken to the last. So he just, at that point, I think after turn 3, he would have roughly had like 5 rubrics and Araman left, and a couple of characters knocking about. So
that's amazing from your side to be able to take that much so soon.
Yeah, it was quite brutal, and I mean he was rolled terribly on his saves, to be fair. Like, I mean, he was on a 50-50 roll, he was rolling more like 75% fails. So you can't sort of compensate. Like, if you're relying on 4-ups and you don't roll hot, then you just lose.
Sometimes the dice does happen, yeah.
Yeah. I think that I sort of went into the game thinking I'd probably lose it just because I didn't think I'd do it on primary. And I went first, basically. So it was not a game that I went into thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to smash this thing. I went into it thinking, if I go first, I probably have a good chance. If I go second, he teleports onto all the objectives and I never push him off them. And I went first, and I managed to keep it. He never got out of his deployment zone, basically, which wants to function.
Especially he was running duplicity, which obviously I would normally see them in time with that many scarabs, but I guess he wasn't expecting just full on as I think I don't know if you called it this or the tournament called it the Monster Mash army. They kept referring to it on the social channels. Is that
it's Monster Mash, basically? Yeah, no, it's just. I think that no one's seen those data sheets in years as well, so people kind of forgot what they did. But it's like Chaos has probably 5 good units, and that's the army.
Especially Lord Discordant, it just doesn't get seen at all. And the fact you were running 2 was suddenly
it's just Armor of Contempt made those good again, basically. The fact that they have a natural 2-up save and regen a wound every turn means that they're just. And the amount of attacks they get in Flawless Host is just unreal. Like, just the quantity that they're pumping out. I mean, they're sort of averaging 30 attacks. You've obviously got the 1 CP strat to reroll all hits and wounds, which, it's proper 8th ed jank, basically. It's making the best out of a bunch of crap.
And what was the reason behind the Daemonettes? Was it purely because you wanted to go for the Slash route on those, or were they just cheaper units than Horrors, for example?
Oh, I think they're junk, but you need the advance and charge, basically. So the keepers, you need it to be mono Slanesh, because then they unlock advance and charge for the Disco Lords too.
Yeah.
Because it's old 8th ed crap, it all works between codexes and stuff, which basically means that you can activate them off that, and that's sort of key to the armies being able to advance and charge with the discos. And the Daemonettes are rubbish. They are some of the worst point for point infantry in the game, I think. You look at it compared to a witch, and you're this is just terrible.
But they are extremely cheap as well for that area.
Yeah, you pay for a unit, and they are the key to winning with the army, basically. You need them to put up banners, you need them to do R&D, you need them to just hold your back objective, and stop people deep striking in your backfield and stuff. So they have a purpose, but it'd be nice if they actually could. I think the best they did was kill an ethereal, and they only just did it. 10 of them charged.
Oh, really?
They just about a tout ethereal. So you think they are just dog shit.
But you said if they're holding your objectives while your big guys can just run around and do what they want to do.
Yeah. You just got to force people not to kill them.
So this army you put together, are they models you already had? You were just I want to try them out, I want to play around with them? Or was it you had this vision in your mind of, I really just want to create something crazy that hasn't been seen?
Is that my Chaos collection is kind of very soupy, so I don't actually own many full Chaos armies. I own the units I want to soups. I own the Keepers, but the Daemonettes were quite a new addition to that. And then I had Be'lakor because I wanted to run in with my Chaos Knights to run sort of a silly Chaos Knights thing. And then I bought Morty because I wanted to run them with the Chaos Knights. And so it's all just a bit of I just like big monsters, basically.
So it's not that you have a Death Guard army and Chaos army, so you have individual pieces.
I like the big character models, and I think they do work quite well, basically. I have quite a few demons, quite a big demon army, but I just like Chaos. I just like all the stuff. I like all the characters, and I just own tons of it. More than sensible to sort of own, but none of it makes a particularly mono-faction army. It's all just soupy crap.
Yeah, but it's really nice to see it coming together like that in different ways. I think that's the difference that Chaos has at the moment, is that, and why I'm drawn to it so often, is that the army choices are very varied. A lot of armies, they're well, this works and this works, and so you're going to stick with those. But Chaos just seems to break every rule.
Yeah, basically, and I think that a lot of people have been sleeping on the fact that Supreme Command doesn't have to be locked to your faction.
Right.
The refund bonus can be any faction. So you can take a Supreme Command of Morty and refund your battalion for demons, basically.
Yeah, because I remember when I saw your list, I was I have to run this in Battlescribe myself, because the CP seems off. And it was, it's all fine.
Yeah. Oh, you're on 13 CP. It's no, you refund the series. Morty costs nothing. He actually gives you 3 to take him in, which I think is it's just one of those weird interactions that you see in no other faction. You could do it with Imperial. I guess you took Gilliman as a Supreme Command and then souped him in with something else. You could do it, but Chaos is the only one that has sort of regular access to multiple factions whilst also being able to sort of be good. And I think it's well worth it to lose the -1 toughness aura, which would be awesome if you still kept it, but I'm perfectly fine losing it.
So you've been, I've been looking up, yourself in previous tournaments, and the results are brilliant. As you've had that past experience, it seems that you've had Kells previously, and then obviously Dracari and Thousand Suns, and I saw you've been stepping away from Thousand Suns from some of the groups. So is that just because you found a new interest, another army you want to kind of focus on?
To be fair, I would wholly blame. I don't know if you know Michael Costello. He plays Deathwatch. Very good Death.
I've spoken to him a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I took the Thousand Suns to a few tournaments, and I played. It was quite good fun, all the games, and then I played him in his Deathwatch, and all the storm shields in cover just completely negated the -2 shooting so hard that I sort of rage quit the Thousand Suns.
Really?
I was well, it's one of those unfortunate things where Thousand Suns are boring. Basically, they have 2 units. You take
not a lot you can run with.
You're not I need to pivot into this. I'll take a fast army. You look at even Chaos Space Marines. You're like, I want to play it quickly. Well, I'll take discos and I'll take demon edges, or I want to play it sit back and shoot. Well, I'll take tanks and havocs and whatever. Whereas you look at Thousand Suns, you go I have 1 damage weapons that have AP2 and AP3, and that's it. That's all you can do. That's the best you're bringing to the table. And so they just they're a classic army where they're kind of like a 3-2-4-1 army, where they just have a bad match and then you just completely lose. There's some armies they match into where you go I literally can't beat this. And
that's what happened with Alex. He was doing great all weekend, even the last game, and then your game came through and it just took him out. That was
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I just think they really, or you play into Grey Knights with them. And then you go, you get +1 to all your denies, and you can do a 3d6 deny, and all your basic troops are better than my basic troops, and you lose, basically. You cannot deal with Dread Knights, you just can't do it. And then you lose, and you go it's just not very fun playing an army that's so rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But Mike's a definite outcast on Space Marine armies, because when you look through every list he's ever playing, he's up there, and then suddenly it's way down. More Space Marines.
Yeah, no, he is a phenomenally good player, but I think it was just those games really hammered home how much it annoyed me. It just sort of they were the straw that broke the camel's back of being shit, I hate it.
That's fair enough. Yeah. And then in Dracari as well, is it just stepped away from those, just used the recent data changes where they've kind of been hit quite hard, really?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked elves of sort of every description. I have Harlequins, I have Eldar, I have Quins and stuff like that. And I do like them all. And the Dark Elves is definitely something I perfectly happily still play. It's just after I played them at Beachhead, the sort of big one down on the south coast, that kind of again, I was just playing them and going am I really enjoying playing the army that's viable at the moment with them? And is this I sort of enjoy again it's similar to my love of Monster Mash, is that I like just playing the big monsters and running them at the enemy, and that sort of obviously got a big nerf, and I love the Talos, I love the Kronos and stuff like that, and they obviously got significantly worse, and I'd be perfectly happy playing more like an MSU style army, but I just don't enjoy it as much. It's ultimately I do like winning and I do like playing competitively, but then I always have that fight with myself again, actually do I actually like playing this army? And that's why I sucked back. It was Monster Mash or Knights or something like that, just because I like playing that kind of army.
And also, if you spend your whole weekend playing it, you should enjoy it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I originally clocked onto it because I was sick of my games taking so long. So, I started playing Knights, and they were sort of thinking, actually, I do want to finish in an hour and then wander around. So I was I'll just play Knights, that'll be fun.
Right.
And that was a few years ago, and they never looked back.
So did you find all your games this weekend ended up actually being quicker because people just weren't really sure what to do?
Yeah, that, and I think it's that it's sort of what I like about it is that you always get 5 turns out of my army most of the time. Obviously, game against Alex was a difference because he conceded.
That's a different thing.
That's sort of a different thing. But every other opponent, it was close and it went to game 5. There were no games that I went into and had a walkover with them. And there was, because it's weird and skewed, and all my opponents who went into the game thinking they beat me, because they had an army that on paper like does quite well into that, actually ended up sort of not quite realising the depth of the list potentially, and then sort of it was always a full game. Like, you know, every game, like my last game 100% could have swung towards my opponent. My first game could have swung towards my opponent. It wasn't like I was going through these games with sort of like and walking over people, which I enjoy. Like, I enjoy when you get a full game out of it, like and you can sort of play for 5 turns. But because there's not that many models in my army to move, I can finish 5 turns in about 40 minutes. Like, wow. You know, I moved 5 models, and that's basically it. You know, it's.
I saw on. Sorry, I do apologise. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. The photo you shared with the Chaos Demons group, which was just fascinating. I think everyone was like, "Whoa, what is this?" It's just crazy army, you know, and that's just what it does. It totally stands out. I noticed you had this kind of chart on the top right with. Is that just a reference sheet for you that you use to know kind of what each part's doing? I
roll up the exalted powers for my keepers, so I don't pick them beforehand.
Ah, right.
Randomly do them each game.
To enable that you can have more kind of thing.
Yeah, to have 2 of them, and they're all kind of good with the Keeper of Secrets ones. Like, they're not sort of like Bloodthirster ones where you got like a junk one and then a really good one. Like, I think other than the morale one, I think all the Keeper of Secrets ones are good. So I just roll for them, and I needed some kind of bookkeeping way of find myself what the hell they all were. And then the others are just the psychic powers, because essentially the cheapest widget I've ever made is a £2 whiteboard from Asda with a bit of magnetic printer paper. Jobs are good.
That's great. Yeah, and I was curious because, like, you know, with Lord of Change or something, you often take a choice and it's there. You're going to stick with that one. And you said you normally stick. So it's interesting to hear that with the keepers, you were happy to be like a bit of a gamble, see what happens, and if it goes wrong, there it goes.
The exalted powers on the keepers is just like extra sauce. Like, you know, they're good by like even without the exalted like powers, they're just good. And then the extra powers is like, oh, this game I got a 4-up invulnerable save. Well, I don't have to pay for warp surge then, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's nice. Nice to have some CP back. Or I got Realm Racer, so I'm a bit faster. Oh, well, that kind of makes me not have to re-roll a charge later on or something like that. You know, it's always just... It's basically like trading CP for not spending CP later. Like,
that's great, yeah.
Really sort of how it roughly works out. I rolled like the morale-based one, like 4 games out of 5, though, which was basically the equivalent of not having one.
Right.
So
that's the gamble you take, though.
The rest you know, sometimes you roll 1-2 and get a 4-up invul and +2 to your movement and go, yeah, great. And then sometimes you get the morale one and like exploding 6s and you go, yeah, whatever.
So what got you into tournaments in the first place? Because I said I've seen you've been playing quite a while. This isn't a new trend for you or anything, but so obviously that helps with your game to ensure that you've done this enough so you know what you're doing. What first got you into it?
I think it's just that, like, I like the competitive aspect of it. It's almost like I like building and painting models for a point. Like, it feels like you sort of taking them to a tournament is the way of sort of validating all the time you spent on them. I guess, like, and I do enjoy the social aspect of it. Like, I think that, you know, I ultimately play Warhammer to get away from my sort of everyday life. Like, it's like, you know, I like in like sort of the best nerds, like, I don't really care that much. Like, Warhammer for me is just like, it's a fun thing I do at the weekends, but that's kind of the best way to have it for me, and it works very well in my life. Like, it gets me away from work. I meet up with mates, we go out in the evening, but I take it seriously enough that I want to do well. So it's you know, sort of for me that sort of works. That's my sort of the way I play it. So tournaments are just like a nice structured way of seeing people from around the country on a regular basis that you're friends with, and playing games that, you know, I can take the sort of hardest list that I think I'm going to do well with and play my best without feeling that I need to either not play as well if it's like a local friendly against someone who's less experienced. But I'm happy to do if someone wants sort of a friendly game, but I prefer just sort of giving it my all and them giving it their all, and we see how like sort of it all settles out in the end.
Another one I really want to ask you is, do you have any other tournaments you're signed up for currently this year that you're heading into as well?
Yeah, far too many. Several I probably cancel. I just tend to book these things and then sort of get told that I'm not available for them afterwards.
Oh, right. Do you have like kind of in mind that you want to continue the Monster Mash thing, or do you have other visions that you want to take forward?
Yeah, no. So I'm going to go to Birmingham next month and take the Birmingham GT and take the Monster Mash again. But I think it needs to be changed to try and compensate for the sort of insanity of the NIDS book.
That didn't really seem to hit this weekend. Like, no one seemed to...
It wasn't in use, so because of when the deadline was, so you could still use Crusher, but you couldn't use the new Codex. So it was sort of like...
in that, yeah.
I would say this weekend's tournament is probably the most balanced tournament we'll have all year, where it was just after the data change, everything's in flux, you got Marines, I mean, you looked at round 5, and you had, like, Marines, Necrons,
Space Wolves were in there.
Space Marines, like it was just like a crazy mission. Obviously, the end finale ended up Eldar and Tau, which no one was particularly surprised by. But still, you went up to round 5, and it was still just like quite healthy and nice to see, 10 different armies up there, and like best Space Marine player finished like 8th or something like that. It was like
Mike came 9th in the end. Yeah,
Mike came 9th. So you go like that's pretty bloody good. Like
I was actually surprised there wasn't more Harlequins. It seemed that the top Harlequin was Steve Box. And even he, I think, just due to almost one game, unfortunately came 12th, and it's just that one game really pushed him back. I was expecting more pure Harlequins, and surprised there wasn't actually that many.
I mean, I ran pure Harlequins at an event a couple of weeks ago, and they were stupid with all the light stuff, and like I have all the Void Weavers and all that crap. And I just think that after the Void Weavers got dropped, and everyone that was playing Harlequins kind of felt like they maybe moved to Eldar. And that was sort of like the jank of choice, whereas Boxy's just strong stayed on Dark anyway. Like he was already running that list before this, and his list basically wasn't changed from the data update, and he's very good with it. Unfortunately ran it up. All those that sort of lot, that sort of I guess caliber of player tend to go like 4-1 at most events anyway. Sort of there's very few times when him, Mike, any of the others will go sort of less than 4-1. I think it's just those hard matchups, and I think again at the top it's very much that like the players that are getting those wins could kind of play anything, like whatever they're going to take.
I know what you mean. There's so people of your caliber and those top tables really. It's not so much about the army; it's really about how you actually play. Definitely positioning and everything makes a huge difference. Yeah,
big time, and. Obviously, you have armies that are kind of like idiot-proof, like when when Admech was at its like zenith of being just ridiculous, and like any mug could take that meta army and probably win most games with.
You just stand at the back and shoot forward.
And you teleport over and you shoot, and everything you shoot dies. And or like the planes or something like that. There's no way you can get away from it, and your whole army's dead. So whereas like at least now I feel like something like Eldar is a hard army to play. It just is. Something like Tau with the changes is harder to play. Like you've got to move well, you've got to know your rules well, you've got to position well, which is nice. Like it just feels like I feel like the game's in a fairly good spot. But then I did play a game against New Nids the other day, and like all my sort of good feelings about the game went away.
I have heard there's rumours of 50 mortal wounds a turn with armies now, which is
it's out of line of sight mortal wounds just for the difficult task of just casting a power. So it's like cast 7, 3 mortals out of line of sight, and you go, oh god, like who wrote this? Like.
So you were saying you might adjust your Monster Mash army. How might you kind of refocus it?
I was sort of looking at two things. So I'm going to put the Shining Aegis, whatever how you really pronounce it, whatever the shields are on the keepers to give them the 5-up versus mortals, which I think may be a layer of survivability. It's not much, but with all the denies, I'm hoping it can push it back a little bit. And just having an innate 6-up feel no pain might make them slightly survive more. And then I was potentially considering dropping the discos actually into just a second demon detachment and taking a wall of beasts of Nurgle to throw at the front.
Interesting.
Just to absorb mortal wounds, have a 5-up, feel no pain. It's 105 points for a 3-man unit, which is 15 wounds, which is quite a lot to grind through. That's like versus mortals, that's 21 wounds to get through to actually kill that unit. And I think if you're within 12 inches and they're at the front line, then I can charge you next turn. So yeah, that's sort of the logic there. I'm not sure if it'll work out well enough to bother with, but I think those are sort of ideas I'm having to try and compensate.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing there's a few in America, especially a few chaos lists where they're running a lot of Nurgles. So I think Beast of Nurgle makes complete sense as well. Yeah, because just big blocks of them that you can jump up the board, just annoy.
Yeah, run them up. The only problem is they're quite slow. This is always the issue with the stuff, is that the keepers kind of want to be in front of all of that. So it's only really relevant for turn 1, and they're not infantry, so they can't move through walls. So it's all a bit. It's hard to know if it's actually worth bothering with on the board you're playing with.
This could be why Nurglings are taken, because they can be put any way you want before.
Don't get their 5-up feel no pain doesn't work against mortals.
Right. So then that's not going to help benefit there.
25 points a base, which seems a bit outrageously costed, I think. When they were sort of 16, I think, yeah, great, I'll take like 20 of those. But at 25 a base, I'm like, oh, it's a lot of points.
I hope we get a new codex very soon.
Never. You'll never get one. It'll be new Space Marines before Demons get a new codex.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah, that's absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm still wondering if they're going to put them in together, but I don't think they will. But just purely because they've done that mix with Harlequins and Elder and all the other kind of Elder forces into one big book now.
Yeah. To be fair, Harlequins have 5 units. Chaos is actually what I think is nice is that Chaos is an 8th ed book that still has enough depth in it that you can take it now in like late stage 9th and still win games and go like there are still things in here that I can take and beat, which is quite rare for a book of that age. It's nice that you had Army of Renown come back with Be'lakor and people go like, oh yeah, well these are kind of good again now.
I think Be'lakor became very popular, but he's also got an extremely pretty model, however you look at it.
Everyone, if you play Demons, you probably own Be'lakor, and he's good. It's nice to have a named character that's a big centerpiece model that is legitimately good in basically any army you take him in. I think the new Chaos Knight thing they're doing, where you can throw one of them into a Chaos army too, seems cool. I'll probably look at that whenever that book drops, because that seems awesome. Like the no reroll to hit, transhuman to hit thing.
Yeah, it's currently rumored around June, is it not?
Yeah, June. I think we'll probably get the the box thing where they've got the book and the new psychic
guy. Yeah,
little chaps. That should probably come out relatively soon because they're previewing it all this week, I think, aren't they? They did it all last week. There's another night one out this week, so I'd be surprised if it wasn't announced in the next couple of weeks.
We've got the May anniversary party thing for Warhammer, and they're announcing that new. No one's sure what it is yet, but potentially new demon prince of some sort.
Yeah, matched up the wing of it to one of the previews they did in that boiler video, and that was like a grey sort of looking thing. So maybe new possessed or something like that, which would be awesome.
Great to see.
Yeah. I can retire the Gal Vorback and take some nice new possess.
Okay, thanks, Liam. I really appreciate your time. And do you have any social channels like Instagram or anything that I could link people to?
I've got an Instagram. I'll send you the tag for that. It's just Liam Paints Models.
Great. Thanks so much, buddy. Have a really good one.
Cheers. You too, man.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Mega Miniatures, and thank you to Liam for this interview. If you want to hear from other pro players or other people playing tournaments or just people playing specific armies, let me know down below and I'll get in touch with those people to discover why they've taken the selections they have. See you next time.